May I do my little commercial break again in case there's anybody out there on YouTube that hears it on YouTube? Is it okay if I tell everybody again about the Ladysmith gig on Monday nights? If there's anybody out there that's watching this, going to watch this on YouTube, that's in the area. Ladysmith at the Ladysmith Amphitheater, Monday nights at 7 p.m. There's a group of guitarists, and I'm one of the lead singers and drummers with the guitar group. Monday nights at 7 p.m. at the Amphitheater in Ladysmith. Thank you.
So this is Char of Char's Landing, welcoming everyone. Today we're welcoming you both in-house and online. It's our hybrid event, so congratulations everyone. Give yourselves applause for figuring it all out. Yay, yay, applause, applause, woo! Yeah, so it's a little different today. We do have Derek Hanebury. He is our MC, and he's actually in-house today. And we have a dozen or two guests here tonight, and we're all figuring it out. We're seated and happy. And I want to encourage the people who are on Zoom to do what you do every month. So, you know, keep your videos on. We're watching on the big screen. We're watching your comments on the big TV screen up here. So you're with us. And hi, and Gibson's, Kathy and David. Yeah, would love, and there's Jennifer, love to see your names and what city you're from. It makes it especially fun for us here in Port Alberni on beautiful Vancouver Island. So I'm Char, this is my home, my living room, and I appreciate you bringing all this beautiful energy to our humble home here. And I'm going to turn it over to Derek, our MC for tonight, and good luck.
Thanks, Char. Karl was going to give me a brief introduction.
Yes, I always
ahead,
had to do
Karl.
some. Electric Mermaid MC Derek Hanebury is a Port Alberni writer of poetry, fiction, and creative nonfiction. Who taught writing here at North Island College for many years. His latest book is Both Sides Now. Is a collaboration of short fiction stories with two of his past students. His upcoming solo collection, entitled Something Else Altogether, will be coming out this fall.
Thank you very much, Karl. Thank you for that, and welcome everybody. I have to say this is feeling quite surreal to actually have people, live people in the audience, but also be doing it at Zoom at the same time. I feel like I'm kind of caught between two worlds, but hopefully we'll make this all work. I'm sure we're gonna have a few bumps, but we've got Char here looking after things, so everything will be good. So welcome to the Electric Mermaid. We're coming to you from beautiful downtown Port Alberni, unceded territory of the Sishat and Hepetcheseth First Nations, upon whose land we're very grateful to be living on and sharing. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is like almost coming back to normal. It's kind of transition. And I have this terrible feeling we might go back into lockdown in a few weeks, but in the meantime, we're going to enjoy this while it's happening. So it's great. So the Electric Mermaid, for those of you who might be new here, takes its name from the beautiful electric mermaid that hangs in the rafters here at Char's Landing. It's a wonderful piece of sculpture, all lit up. And she's our mascot, Luma, that watches over us here at Char's Landing. This is a diverse community that we welcome here in the Electric Mermaid. We have writers from all stages of their writing careers and all levels of skill. We're a wide open community in that regard, and welcome all manner of diversity to come together and share their work. And for those of you who are just here to listen, we're always grateful for that audience too. So thank you for coming. The only thing we're not tolerant of here is hate speech, and anything that strays over that will be muted rather promptly. So I don't think we have to worry about that, but it's always good to mention it anyway. So this evening we are very fortunate to have a couple of featured readers. One coming to us from Washington, known as the psychiatrist down there, who has written numerous books on cooking, and her latest one is about the art of pie, and that's Kate McDermott. We're really grateful to have her zooming in, and she very nicely canceled a later engagement this evening so she doesn't have to take off right away. So thank you, Kate, for doing that. And we also have our talented local poet, Linda K. Thompson here, and she's launching her first full book of poetry. Thank you for the wave, Linda. And really excited to hear her read from that this evening. So on top of that, of course, we have Joy Sheldon is going to be our featured local reader, so a spotlit local reader, I guess you'd say. So she's got a 10-minute slot there. And Joy's coming from the Cowichan Valley. She's going to share some of her work with us. And on top of that, we have lots of open mic readers. And we would encourage anyone who's out there, who's listening, who writes at all, to think about maybe signing up for next month. Yeah, third Friday of every month we're here. So September, what is it going to be, Karl? The 18th? 17th. Okay, September 17th will be the next one. So you can go to sharslandingreads.com, I believe. Well, Karl will put it in the chat, and you can get signed up for that one for next month. So in case you didn't hear the recording note come on, for those of you who might be concerned, this is being recorded. Char likes to upload this to YouTube afterwards and use small segments for promotion things. So if you're wanted somewhere, you might want to go to your icon right now. Otherwise, please stay with us and have fun. Relax, sit back, pour yourself a glass of wine if you're at home, order something to drink if you're here at Char's. And our first reader tonight is going to be Martha Grant, first open mic reader. So Martha, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hey, hang on.
That's you, Martha. Come
Cool.
on.
Okay, are we ready?
There we are. I
Okay,
see her.
are we good? We good?
We're good, Martha. Take it away.
I am delighted to be here. I'm crazy about Linda's work. We've met in poetry circles in different parts of the United States, and this is a kick. I am reading to you from Weaving the Terrain, 100-word poems of the Southwest. Dos Gatos Press. It's exactly 100 words in each poem, not counting the title, which is a good thing because the title is Why I Hope to Die with My Boots On in the Texas Hill Country. Because the tail of the lizard my cat just ate is wiggling on the porch. Because vultures are circling a dead possum on my land. Because weeds have grown up in the path of my labyrinth, because a 10-inch rain sprouted a mushroom fairy village in the mulch, because a ringtail steals persimmons from the tree beyond my window, because of a gecko in my toilet, a scorpion in the sink, a tarantula under the deck, cardinal eggs in the fern basket, a fawn bleating for its mother in that downpour, because the tail of that lizard is still wiggling. Thank you. That's good. Thank you.
Awesome, Martha. Thank you so much. I was hoping for another one after that first one. You do have 5 minutes. If you've got another one you'd like to read, we'd love to hear it.
I'm sure I do. I'm sure I do. I'm gonna reach for cat meditation. Without considering the letters, the poet Rumi writes, listen to the language of the heart. I consider instead the calligraphy of marks my fingers inscribe on the back of the cat now sleeping on my lap. Translate the prayer I find there, brailing her fur for the purr of the heart's soft, sweet language.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, that was a great, strong way to open this evening out, and beautiful poems, beautiful imagery. Our next reader is Lindsay Rear, and I believe she's on Zoom as well. Oh, we haven't found Lindsay yet. Okay. No. Okay. No, Lindsay, then we'll move along and we'll go all the way to Ontario and welcome Jennifer Wenn. Jennifer.
Good evening.
How are you doing?
Not too bad, coming from what I like to think of as Port Alberni's easternmost suburb.
Yeah, that's right. We'll amalgamate you, no problem. You're in.
There we go. I have three that I'll do, one medium and two short. The first one I never actually read in public. It was the very first poem I ever wrote 4 years ago, summer of 2017, which was published for some reason in Tuck magazine. But I thought I would do it here. Well, you'll see why by the title. The title is Carmana Walbron. Some years ago now, we journeyed to Vancouver Island. This will be great, said Graham, who lived in Vancouver. While you're here, you have to see Carmana Walbron. It's one of the few patches of old growth rainforest left on the island. It's very special. Come the weekend, I'll cross over from the mainland. We can meet up at my brother-in-law Paul's country place and go from there. Caught up in his enthusiasm, we, Andrew, Donna, and I agreed. And so it came to pass. Enjoy, said Paul. I'll have a barbecue ready when you return. And so we bounced and jolted more than 2 hours on a logging road filled with ruts and craters big enough it looked to swallow the van or at least take off a wheel. Pausing only to rest our laboring vehicle and the driver at a spectacular view that suddenly presented itself. Onward we forged, and then finally, but suddenly, we were there. The welcome sign marking the gravel parking lot at the destination. Alighting, we entered the domain of the ancient forest giants, towering majestically overhead, moss everywhere, clinging to the massive trunks hanging from branches. For sound, our footsteps, the occasional bird, the murmuring stream when we were near it, the gentle roaring of the waterfall in the distance, and our attempted expressions of wonder. For there was more here than a family of gentle titans. We were embraced by a wave whose origin seemed lost in time and from some other dimension entirely. We all felt it. It's like there's a wisdom coming out of the trees, declared Graham. Paul later said simply, it's a very spiritual place. Andrew and Donna wandered in wonder. As for me, I tried to find the words, but didn't really. All too soon, we reached the hour to leave the sacred space. We bounced and jolted our way out, blowing a tire on the way, back to the barbecue, to the rest of the trip, to the rest of our life journeys, but changed, maybe a bit, maybe profoundly. Soaring Sitka spruce, the largest, impossibly high, magnificent Douglas fir, enormous red cedars that have seen a millennium of rain and sun come and go. Will we have the wisdom to let your realm remain in peace for generations unborn to rediscover, to feel in their turn the kinship, the embrace, to find anew that doorway and the connection? Thank you very much. The second one, I've never actually read in public either. It's called The Ant. It was published not all that long ago, actually, in the Belleville Review. Halfway down the driveway, you were noticed, some tiny spark catching the eye, pulling attention to a significant detail bound together with me in creation's vast web. Your burden, your prize, proudly thrust out in front of you, a dead pill bug, seemingly far bigger than you, but easily borne, at least for stretches. Pavement cracks, a major obstacle? But you flipped around and pulled down, across, up and over and onward, transcending apparent limits, and in time into the backyard, scrambling, pulling, pushing, climbing through the interminable jungle of the lawn, bound for a hidden underground realm, bound for reassimilation by the colony, bound for insectoid hearth and home. Heading into my own little realm, I looked up and wondered. Thank you. The last one, it was published as well in Tuck magazine, and this, in contrast to the first two, this is the poem I have performed the most in public, a number of times at all sorts of different venues. And the reason, quite simply, it's entitled Transgender Anthem. And so it's got everything to do with the contents. I'm a transgender woman. And so this has turned out to be a suitable piece in all sorts of different occasions. Since time immemorial, revealed or hidden, self-aware or suppressed, we have been here. Through pain, confusion, and joy, tearing at contrary shrouding shells, we have been here. We follow paths indescribable and incredible, yearning to shine forth our extraordinary iridescence, and we are here. We are the convention shakers, mold breakers, trailblazers, and we are here. We are not an illness or a theory or a debating point. We are flesh and blood, marvelous souls and children of the cosmos, and we are here. We are dismissed by the ignorant, stared at by the fear blind, assailed because we dare to disturb comfortable prejudices, but we are here. We are scared yet courageous, despised yet loved, weary yet striding on, and we are here. We are children and parents, siblings and spouses, friends and lovers, colleagues and neighbors, poor and well off, and we are here. Hatred fells some of us, but we remain unshakable, unbreakable, bright, blazing beacons of a new rediscovered spirit, and we absolutely, emphatically, now and forever, will be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Jennifer. And I, for one, am really glad you're here too. We're all glad you're here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was awesome. All right, we're going to move on to our first featured reader for tonight, and that's Kate McDermott, coming to us from south of the border there. And as I mentioned earlier, Kate is known locally as the piechiatrist, apparently, and is known to answer questions about pie baking and life if posed to her. So she's going to read for about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll have a chance to open it up for some question and answers. So if you've been wondering about pie crusts or wondering about anything that Kate has to tell us, that'll be your chance to ask her some questions. So let me just tell you a little bit about Kate. She's the author of Art of the Pie, a practical guide to homemade crusts, fillings, and life. Home Cooking with Kate McDermott, Pie Camp, the skills you need to make any pie you want. And I take it that you're going to read from Art of the Pie tonight, and I'm hoping so anyway. But I have to say, I can't imagine anyone who could feel depressed while they're eating pie. I mean, to me, pie is like one of the greatest desserts of all time. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us tonight. Kate, welcome to the Electric Mermaid.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. I'm in Port Angeles, Washington. And I thought that I would actually read something from the last book that I wrote, the most recent one, which is Pie Camp. And so this is, I think it deals a little bit with seasonality, not only of it's seasonality of our lives, I would say, which seems like when we're making pies, when we say, what is it about pie? There's so much more that is inside of that pie. So I hope that this will address a little bit of that. I've written on this topic or areas of this topic before for decades. Okay, this piece is called "The Apple Doesn't Drop Too Far from the Tree." I am an unplanned love child born between my birth mother's two marriages. A few months before she gave birth to me, she traveled from Ohio to Montecito, California, where she had some family, and she stayed there until I arrived. At the hospital, she requested that she not see me, hold me, or be told whether I was a boy or a girl. She gave me up for adoption, returned to her life, and a few months later remarried, telling no one about what had happened except her new husband. She had 3 more children, the youngest of whom is my sister, Helen. At the ages of 66 and 58, we met for the first time. For many years, decades, in fact, I searched for birth family, but I always had hit dead ends. In 1978, before I was to marry husband number 1, I wanted to find out if there might be any health issues in my family of origin that could affect my decision to have children or not. My real mom, and by real, I mean the one who walked me in the middle of the night when I was teething, bandaged my skin knees, and sent me to school with endless brown bag lunches selflessly offered to help by placing phone calls to our pediatrician, who she said had known my birth family, and to the lawyer and longtime family friend who had handled the adoption. Unfortunately, both were less than helpful. The doctor hung up on my mom, and the lawyer said that he had burned all his files when he became a Superior Court judge in our county. A few years later, I sent a letter to the state of California asking for any non-identifying information from the file that contained my original birth certificate, especially any information which was health-related. Not long after, an envelope arrived, and when I opened it, I found a single piece of paper packed with information that my mother had provided to her case manager. Names were not included, of course, but I learned that my mother had been 23, my father 27, and that both had been born in Ohio. It also included physical descriptions: mother, exceptionally attractive, well and expensively dressed, fair coloring, blue eyes, blonde hair, clear, fair complexion, poised, self-assured, relatively high intelligence. Father, according to her, about 6 feet tall, medium build, brown eyes, brown hair, olive complexion, nice looking, brilliant, but moody. Occupation: mother had been a nurse's aide and group supervisor in a children's home. Father worked in advertising at a television station. Special interests: mother, very good in languages and liked to write, but had not published. Father, not given. Health: mother, good health, knows of no mental or physical disorders in family. Maternal aunt has hay fever allergies. Father, In good health, and she thinks all relatives healthy with no serious or adverse history. Religion, mother Protestant, father Jewish. During the busy years of raising my own young family, the project was pushed to the back burner, but in the mid-1990s, a volunteer searcher who aided members of birth triangles was able to locate an address for my birth mother. I sent a card with the words, "We haven't been in touch since," and I gave my birth date. "I would love to hear from you." My request went unanswered for weeks, so I decided to place the call. This was years before easy access to computers and the internet, so I first dialed 411 directory assistance. Within seconds, I had a number. My hand was trembling as I dialed, and a few rings later, I heard a cheery voice on the other end say, "Hello." It was her, my mother, the woman who had given birth to me. I would love to say that it was an easy conversation and that she had been looking for me too, but that's not how it went. Yes, my card had been received, but she had put it away in a drawer. "What is it that you want?" The tone in her voice had turned cool now, and I knew she could hang up on me at any moment. I asked for any information about her and my family of origin that she would be willing to share. I was ready with pen in hand, and I still have the notes I scribbled down with her responses. She told me of the very difficult time it had been in her life and one that she had tried to place behind her. She told me I had an older half-brother from her first marriage and that there were 3 children that came after me from her second marriage. She asked if I had any children. I told her of her grandchildren, Sarah and Duncan. I sensed her reluctance to talk much longer and asked if we might chat again after we had had time to process what had just transpired between us. She agreed, we set a date, and said goodbye. A few days later, an envelope arrived with pictures and names of her children, my half-sibs, and one of her. Now, 23 years after that phone call and a year and a half after my birth mother's passing, I was meeting my sister Helen, who was my mother's youngest daughter and named for her. Coincidentally, Helen was the name of my adoptive mother also. My sister and I had connected by social media messaging the night before I was to speak in New York City on a book tour. She lives on an island in the Caribbean and has 2 daughters, both of whom live in the city. Would it be okay if my daughters came to the book event? Would it? Absolutely. The next night we met. One had studied opera as I had, and the other lived just 2 blocks away from where I had on the Upper West Side when I attended music school. We smiled and chatted through the entire evening, and we took selfies with our phones. Soon after, I heard from my sister Helen. We kept in touch over the months, getting to know each other by sharing snippets of our lives. We made a plan to meet in person when both of us would be in New York, which happened just before the photo shoot for this book. On the day we met, we hugged, not once, but twice. We sat down and began to talk, slowly at first, gauging what was appropriate and feeling how it was to be in the presence of the sister you hadn't known you had. We searched out each other's faces, compared our hair, fine and easily tangled, our eyes, bright blue like our mother's, our choice of blouses that day, flowing in patterns of blue. We talked of our children and, of course, our mother Helen, who I learned loved to cook, bake, tend her vegetable and flower gardens, and read voraciously, all things I love to do too. Most of all, I wanted to know if our mother was a happy person, and when I asked, my sister immediately took my hand and answered, yes, Mom was a very happy person. We took a cab ride uptown to the apartment of my niece, whom I had met just months earlier, and we continued to share stories of family and where and how we lived. Then we spent the afternoon baking together, for as life would provide yet another coincidence, my sister Helen is a pastry chef. She had for a time even worked in a Santa Barbara bakery that I used to go to and buy an occasional treat. The world is small, isn't it? Using her recipe, we made an apple crisp pie, my niece photo documenting the occasion. By the time it had cooled enough to slice, my other needs arrived, and the four of us were getting along with the ease one feels when knowing others for a lifetime. We laughed at the same jokes, shared the same facial expressions and mannerisms while we ate bite after delicious bite of the still warm pie we had made together. The next day, all four of us piled into a car and headed to the town just an hour away where my sister had grown up. She showed me parks, the school, and each of the houses she had lived in as a girl. And as we stopped by each one, I asked her 2 questions. Which was your room? And was it a happy time? Yes, she said, it was a very happy time. As our day came to a close, we drove to the cemetery where our mother is buried. Hand in hand, with tears flowing down our faces, we walked to her grave marker. In silence, we each laid a flower on it. Then Helen introduced me to Mom and Mom to me. I listened as she told her that if she had been able to meet me, she knows she would have loved me. And I believe I would have loved her too. For even though we were not to meet in this life, she is in our faces, our eyes, and our love of family, gardens, books, and baking. Because you see, the apple, it really doesn't drop too far from the tree. So if you have questions about pie or life, I'm very happy to answer them or attempt to answer them.
Absolutely. We'll throw that out to the audience here, and I'll field any of the live questions. You can just shout them out to me and I'll repeat them. But if there's anybody on Zoom who's got one, now's the time to come forward and unmute yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I got a question. Oh, thank you so much. That's wonderful reading. What a touching story. How cool that you got to reunite and reconnect that way. That's just amazing. And I know that had your birth mom met you, she would have loved you for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And I have a question about pie crust.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you have some basic that looks delicious. Okay, thank you. I'll have 2 slices. And so my question then for you is, how do you make a great pie crust? Just a great pie crust.
Well, I think pie crust gets a bad rap of being difficult. And there are a few rules that that I follow. Number 1 is to keep everything chilled, especially yourself. This is, it's not hard. I will say that's the most important rule probably in pie making and life, I think. And so I think I worked for 2.5 years studying crust, of what makes a good crust. I tested all sorts of ratios and this or that and ingredients, and does it need to have vodka, or does it need to have cream cheese, or this or that, or then I settled on a very, very simple formula of flour, salt, fat, and water. And really it's very simple. It's kind of going back to the basics that our grandmothers have done, or our great grandmothers at this point. I use 2.5 cups of flour, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and a cup of fat. And the fat can be really anything you want. My favorite is using half butter and half leaf lard, which is the rendered fat from around the pig's kidneys. But if you want to do all butter, absolutely. I think, and I have some recipes that will show you both online and in the books that I hope will demystify and give pie back to all of us, so that we can continue to pass a craft on that has been practiced for generations. That's a long-winded answer, and I'm not sure whether I actually did answer your question.
That hit the spot for me. I don't know. I'm hungry now. That's good. Anyone else have any questions here?
How did you get started doing cookbooks?
I started teaching pie making in 2008, and very quickly And I started a blog at the same time. And then very quickly, I got inquiries from agents and editors. And believe me, that was totally unexpected. In 2008, 2009, I was not ready to write. And, you know, never burn your bridges. I just said, you know, thank you very, very much. I'm not ready to do this, or, you know, whatever. So I kept teaching, I kept learning, and I kept honing a new craft for me of writing. And then I got a phone, actually an email message from what is now my publisher. And they say, we see you're going to be teaching in New York. Would you come and see us? And I looked at the address and it said 500 Fifth Avenue. And I thought, I think that's a pretty powerful address. So I said, sure. So I went, you know, I went and talked to what is now my editor. And I think our meeting lasted 2 hours. She just kept saying, you know, tell us more stories, tell us more stories. We want to hear more stories. And then at the end of the time, they said, you know, we'd love to do a book with you. And that was the first book I wrote, which came out in 2016 and received that's the wrong book. It's called Art of the Pie. And it received a James Beard nomination, and that's like receiving an Oscar nomination. And you know, I'm well over 60 years old, and to have, you know, your first book kind of like hit a home run, it's sold out in pre-sales. It's just like phenomenal. This is like threading a tiny, tiny, tiny needle. And believe me, none of this was planned. I was a musician. That's what I was going to, you know, continue being in my life. But apparently life had different plans for me. And pie certainly has been a great teacher for me.
Beautiful. And of course, your books are so much more than just about pie. No doubt that's why they picked you up. But yeah, I think when time's right for things to happen, they happen. And that's a beautiful story the way that did. And
you did ask for a recipe. I thought I would read one to you.
Sure, beautiful.
This is a pie that we have all made at least once. It's called the Clean the Oven Pie. Ingredients are 1 recipe of fruit filling and 1 recipe double or single crust pie dough. Procedure: preheat the oven and make your favorite pie filling with fresh or unthawed frozen fruit. The juicier, the better. Mound it really high. Cover it with a top crust, cut vents, or make a lattice crust. Bake in the oven. You will know when it is nearly done when you start to smell burning filling. Open the oven to release smoke. Fan the smoke away from the smoke alarm that is now going off. Open windows at this time too. Remove the pie from the oven when it has bubbled over enough. As the pie cools, clean your oven. Thank you. So I want to thank you. I don't know how much more time I have here, but thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. It's really fun. If you want to read more of my writing that is not in the books, I have now embraced a new platform, the Substack platform. And you can find me at Kate McDermott's newsletter on Substack. And I also have that linked on my website at artofthepie.com. So I'd love to have you check out some of my other writing, which much of it is not pie related. And oh my gosh, I'm having the best time and I feel totally liberated there. It's so much fun.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. I don't know if you could hear the thunderous applause here in Char's Landing when you finished that last recipe.
Oh,
it was big.
That's awfully kind. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your work with us. Beautiful. And hopefully we've got the, more applause.
Thank you.
And with my aging eyes, I can't read the chat box from here, but hopefully we got the info for your blog, etc., on the chat there. So
I can type that in for you too. So
perfect.
Thank you. Okay.
Super. Thank you so much. All right, our next featured reader, as I mentioned earlier, is our local cherished poet, Linda K. Thompson. And I had the pleasure of teaching Linda creative writing way back in, I don't know, was it the 90s, Linda? Somewhere back there. No, okay, anyway. Oh dear, the 80s? No. No, but anyway, she immediately presented as a very, very gifted writer, and she had the artist's eye for imagery, and as a writer who has her roots in rural Canada, you know, growing up in Pemberton and then living for many years here in Port Alberni, out Beaver Creek, as the locals would say. That imagery of the land and the rural settings certainly seeps into her work, but there's a certain wry kind of humor that I think sets Linda apart from many other poets, that I can't help but smile whenever I read one of her poems, even if I'm sad by some of the things that are being said. There's always this bit of humor that's going on in the background, and so we're really honored to have you here, and really fortunate, I think, to have Linda as a poet living in the Alberni Valley. She's really top notch, and now that she's published her first book with Mother Tongue, Bears in the Carrot Field, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of Linda on a much bigger stage. So we can all say we knew her when. So let's have a big round of applause for Linda K. Thompson.
Should I move this, Char, down a bit? Is that okay? Oh, I can't see a soul out there. Hello, everyone. Well, here I am, finally reading at Char's Landing. I think I had a date in early 2020 that got canceled. And I wanted to thank all the people here at Electric Mermaid for keeping it going and changing it to something quite fantastic. Thank you very much. I want to mention that I cannot see you, Ryan, because I'm looking at myself right here. Ryan Toso is here from Mobius Books, and he's selling my books tonight. Please go down to Mobius Books on Argyle Street. It's so fantastic. It's exciting to have that beautiful bookstore in our town. And remember, if you're at home watching, you can order it online at Mother Tongue Publishing. Tonight I'll be reading about 15 minutes, 5 poems. Everybody having troubles? Tiffany, Sisters Here and There, Jesus Loves Me, and Bring This Stone to the Grave. The first poem, Everybody Having Troubles. I started to write this when I discovered that there was a little family living in my head that I didn't know was there. And as I started to write, more and more of them came out. And this was the first one. It's Ardith that tells these stories, the youngest in the family. Everybody having troubles. After we missed the National Goat Festival in October, Daddy said, sure as shooting, he would make it up to us just as soon as he was sprung from the clink. But Ma was choked by then, the twins twisting her spleen with their drinking and scrapping, and Tiffany sloppy in love with Boober down at the Texaco. And so when we come over the mountain with Uncle Orv for the Sunday visit, she said to Daddy, she's at the end of some rope, raising up his kids all alone like a widow, with nothing coming in but a dribble of coin from the haulin' Granddad was able to get. And that measly check come from the feds on account of the failure of last year's buds, them all shot through with the wireworm. And the blasted cow broke through to the Helmers, and the turkey chicks, demising like flies. And it made no lick of difference whether Daddy thought the charge was trumped or no. The bars were steel,
and he were on the wrong side, wearing pillow tick pajamas. And no way was I piping up to let Daddy know how nice Mr. Carlisle down at the Fat Bird grocer had come driving around with 2 bags of store-bought food and a box of Napoleon ice cream, and how him and Ma had sat on the step and conversed on days past, and his bored wife, Ida, her dead of electrocution like. So this is what Artist says about her sister Tiffany, who is a little bit older, quite a bit older than Artist, and Artist does not understand her at all. Tiffany. As the youngest, I am trapped here with Tiffany and her need to overshare. Tiffany tells me she may as well marry Boober DeLange, as one way or another he will, through dogged determination, work his way through all the zippers, safety pins, belts, pantyhose, and grandma-style knee-length gaunch she can throw into his path. You can bet she does not breathe a word of these gruesome details to dear old mother. Tiffany contends that being married will ensure she can sleep in whenever she wants, go to the movies whenever she wants, and generally live the life of some guy called Riley. She seems itching to join the ladies down at the laundromat, sitting outside on folding chairs, smoking their players, and drinking coffee with powdered cream. I have a feeling that things might not work out just as she supposes in this daydream of hers, and I doubt that this Riley guy was ever married to a woman himself. Boober has been working at the Texaco on Highway 10 south of town for 7 or 8 months now, since he done up his graduation last spring, and he figures it might work into something real steady, what with him showing up on time for the majority of his shifts. The owner, Randy, says Boober is a breath of fresh air around the place, which is not at all what pops into my mind when I puzzle on the Boober. But Randy says the boy never complains when his name comes up for washroom cleaning duty, knows his way around under the hood of any vehicle, and is as cheerful as all get up with the customers, both local and those passing through to the number 1. And the fact is, when Ma invites him over for supper and he takes a breath between the spuds and the hamburger gravy, he's likely to give us an impromptu recitation on the merits of tire tread, weights of oil, and the various and mysterious fluids needed to keep vehicles in repair for the people who care. This in spite of the unfortunate experience of filling Dad's Ford pickup, not once but twice, with diesel. As Dad tells it, he drove just as far as the Tasty Freeze each time before black smoke started puking like the St. Helens eruption out the exhaust pipe. Now, Boober seems to have set the experience behind him, but I doubt Dad will ever, deep down, forgive him, son-in-law or no son-in-law. Bonnie Lynn, Boober's brother's wife's second cousin, told me that after the second time, folks down at the Tasty Freeze started making bets on the date and time old man Purdon will once more come lurching up the drive for a chocolate ice cream sundae and a double side of black smoke. And she says, when they get in the subject of Daddy's embarrassment, they tend to howl like the Dickens and slap the counter. Tiffany hitches on the sly, or sometimes actually walks to town in the afternoons and sits in Boober's Bondo-filled dark out back of the garage, waiting for his shift to end. She makes good use of the time, staring at herself in the rearview mirror and plucking at invisible hairs on what Ma calls her flawless face. And Ma doesn't usually leave it there, but goes on to say how, yes, she might have Aunt Peggy's peaches and cream complexion, but she, that is Ma, prays to the Lord every day Tiffany don't end up with Peggy's fondness for the vodka and penchant for every good-looking ne'er-do-well man who is a coming down some pike. This isn't about Ardith or Tiffany. It's about sisters, which I have two. Sisters here and there. My living sister is cooking me dinner. It's the same chicken recipe she's been cooking for 35 years now. It's got something to do with soya sauce and a 450 oven. Sister B is a quasi-vegetarian and allows herself only chicken breast, like the breast had never been part of a real bird. Like maybe it's really a chunk of lumped up tofu. If it was allowed, I'm sure B would FedEx her chicken breasts to be cooked in Area 51 on bomb test weekends. But enough about her. The other sister, the dearly departed one, is sitting on the couch watching Pawn Store Stars and says to me, "Didn't Mom have one of them button accordions?" I can't really answer because I'm the only one who can see Verna today. She does that off and on, switches viewing options. Today she's dressed in an old Fortrell pantsuit. It has a few pulls here and there, but like Mom used to say, perfectly serviceable. Verna's the one got Mom's dirty 30s thrift gene. Still, she has a long death ahead of her, so you can see her point. I worry that the freaky shade of turquoise will reflect in the TV and let them all know she's here again because it really pisses B off and she's likely to stomp right out of the house without serving dinner. But we're all good, and B calls from the kitchen, "Come and get it, losers." She means me, of course, and also old Frank and little Dwayne. We're down the back hall, hooping and hollering, playing darts for cigarettes. I say quiet-like to Verna, "Too bad you can't join us." And Verna, never taking her eyes off a rickety old couple, clutching a pair of beaver skin stretching boards, says over her shoulder, "Yeah, tough, eh?" This next poem is Jesus Loves Me. I'm not sure how it came to my head, but I know I was interested to see how the people in this town would react to this fellow coming to town. And for those of you who don't know the area, especially the Sea to Sky, the Squamish Chief is a 700-meter granite dome that is just south of Squamish, a beautiful, beautiful rock. Jesus loves me. Jesus loves me. I say he came to town driving a Chevy Chevelle. Bob says Jay came driving in that summer afternoon in a Dodge Dart, mid-blue, hardtop with a 273. He'd come down the Highline roads, through Seton Portage and Chalath, along Anderson Lake, down that washboard nightmare. No one took the Highline unless it was life or death, unless you were a hydro worker or a tourist who didn't know better. Most everyone arriving in those days came up from the south, up 99, up the Squamish Highway. It was the summer Baldwin and Cooper were making their first ascent, right up the middle of the Grand Wall, making that numero uno climb up the Squamish Chief. Some weekends, 12,000 people gathered along Highway 99 to get a look at those crazy boys going up and down every day, hanging from that slab of granite like gutsy spiders. He'd answered an ad in the Lillooet News, been hired to build new booths in the hotel cafe, put up a bit of trim in the lobby, said he was old-fashioned, didn't like power tools, liked the feel of the saw in his hand. Sure, it took a little longer, but who could argue with the quality of the work? After a couple weeks, Jay started to show up in a kind of robe affair, even sandals. Those days, there wasn't a guy within 100 miles who'd be caught dead wearing sandals. No one seemed to mind, though. We were all a bit in love with him by then, I guess. Like we loved Rolf Harris with his beard and accent, and how he sang about ruse and criminals and big burl eyes and big burl eyes with the chubby cheeks and songs about wine and bubbles and pulling the short straw in love, the way they smiled at us from the covers of those LPs. I might have been hasty telling you no one in their right mind would travel the Hydro Road. When the apricots were ripe in Lillooet, some fruit-loving daredevils were sure to make the trip. Call up Gladys Harris, pile the pickup with old tomato boxes and buckets, and make a run over the washboard hill for the tangy little nuggets. He always sat in the same spot at the pub, the wall behind him mirrored in tiles from some long ago decorating fiasco. It doubled the number of drunks and losers the town really had. Sat across from a sign that ordered no taking our Lord's name in vain, which seemed odd because Howie, the owner, had the roughest mouth in town. Jay never smoked. You hardly needed to in those days to get a good lungful. Sure, he liked his beer, sipped it with an elegance we couldn't quite pinpoint, held the glass just so, placed it carefully back on the exact damp circle. He was the kind of guy people were drawn to. He listened, he nodded. He took in all the words with a kindness, a gentleness we were unfamiliar with. Everybody was eager to spot the guy of brew, eager to share their stories. How the spud crop was good this year or poor this year. How the price of beef was down so low they may as well give the cows away. How the Rollins guy is hauling in the new Ford next week. How the bank is rubbing its hands in glee. How the bush is closed again for heat. And wouldn't it be something to get 6 months straight work? Then one evening he wasn't there. Never said a word. Headed south, we figured, maybe south to the Fraser. Some of us recalled a conversation about sockeye and big runs on the river. Bob's Uncle Ken, hauling for the Pemho Freight Co., reckons he saw him on the 99 that weekend. Ken was riding his clutch through a traffic jam at the bottom of the Chief. Cars parked every which way, and crowds of hundreds all gawking upwards. Ken said he stood out like a sore thumb, dressed all in white, kind of working the crowd, nodding, smiling, shaking hands, throwing his head back and looking up, way up, checking on the boys. Ken caught him in the rearview mirror, says he drove off in a Firebird, black and dusty, but it's still a point of discussion in the bar some nights. So my last poem is going to be Bring This Stone to the Grave. I just wanted to say that we were up north and we were somewhere around Peace River, and I found this great, beautiful stone. It just is so heavy, fits in your hand. I thought, oh, I'll take this home and I'll go and I'll put it on Dad's grave. It just seemed like the thing that I had to do. So I took it back to Pemberton and I got Mom and we went up to the graveyard. And I sort of was standing around, but Mom wandered off and fell into a deep conversation with an Iranian merchant marine fellow who was looking to buy some land in Pemberton, and she never came back. It took the thrill out of what I thought I was going to do. I just brought the stone back to my house. But I thought, it's kind of a good example of what really happened and what you wanted to happen, and how a poet can just kind of massage what happens in the real world. You can get it into 140 words. It doesn't have to be the same way, right? Okay, where is it? So it's not funny. This is how I thought it would be. Bring this stone to the grave. Come up through the fields. It is spring here now, and the wind The winds are sweeping down from the north along the valley, rattling the birches, drying the pastures and last fall's potato fields. The fences are crumpled by another hard winter, but the days are stretching out, the sun inching its way to the place where it dips behind Camelback in June and July. Orioles and waxwings are flying through the nights, warblers remembering the mountain ash and linden mother planted all those years ago. Bring this stone. You are alone and its heft will be company. Smooth as one of father's old violas, pale as the silt on the sandbar where the Herefords bent to drink and we played in the long summers. Still, the sun across the cottonwoods that line the Lillooet will nearly break your heart. Thank you.
You want to just stay there for a second, Linda? Thank you so much for those beautiful poems, so evocative. And I just want to give a chance for a question and answer. And I want to start it off by just saying, can you tell us a little bit about the process you go through in writing your poems? You're saying you kind of heard these voices in your head. How do you end up with the poems that you end up with?
Gosh, that's a pretty hard question, Derek.
Sorry.
Well, I can have an idea and it can roll around in there for a very long time. And there's sort of like the one sentence that starts it off for you, right?
Mm.
I can remember being at Ocean Wilderness and a Patrick Lane workshop, and I had the whole idea, but I couldn't start it. So one thing I do, and I'm really, really in a bind, and I really need something, is I lay down and I kind of go to sleep. And when I wake up, my brain's in a different place. And sometimes that's the place it needs to be. And I get the sentence or the word or something that'll take me in, and then it just flows out.
Beautiful.
Hopefully.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's great. You've got a reset button you can hit. And
I do,
that.
yes.
That's fantastic.
It works sometimes.
Beautiful. All right. Any other questions out there from anyone in the Zoom audience? Just unmute yourself and
Hi.
go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, hi. I just want to say I love the tone of your poems. And what I really enjoyed was the respect you showed for the people you were talking about and the situations. I thought that was magnificent.
Well, thank you very much. Wow. Thank you.
It's not an easy balancing act when you're doing something that has humor to it, but maintaining the respect for those people the way Linda does. It's a good point you bring up there, David. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right.
That's good.
Well, let me remind you that Linda's books are for sale here. Brian, right? At for Mobius Books has them for sale here in Char's Landing for the people on site, and for those of you at home, hopefully we've got it in the chat box there where you can pick them up. If it's not there, Karl is going to put it in there momentarily, and we'll go from there. All right, thank you so much, Linda. That was wonderful. All right, jumping back into the big bright lights again. Okay. Yeah, that was a treat. Every time I hear your poems, I hear other nuances that had gone by me. There's so many in there. Beautiful. All right, our next local open micer is here in person and got here just in time. It's Roscoe-Roumanis, pardon me, and she's going to share, I believe, some of her poetry with us tonight. Yes, she is indeed. All right, welcome, Victoria.
Thank you, Derek, and it's lovely to be back here in Chars. Thank you, Charlene.
And Karl is wonderful. I just got a couple of short poems tonight. The first one is called Skiing Whistler with the Help of Technology. I ski, and this was written, let me tell you first, a few years ago. What year was it? 2015, so a couple of years ago. I skied Whistler today with my son, Alexandros. Do you want to ski with me? Asked Alexis. Of course I did. He put his glove liner in his top pocket, then tucked me inside to view the thrill and speed of the run. We rode the ski lift in the sunshine to the highest point on the west side of the mountain. The run was steep. Looking down from the top, we could see Blackcomb Mountain towering above the valley and Whistler Village. The energy was so high, I did not need my skis. I just bumped down the run beside my son, listening to the skis cutting through the somewhat icy snow. Wow, we were traveling fast. In what seemed like seconds, we were back at the mid-mountain chairlift, ready to board again. The lineup was short. This being midday, most skiers were taking a lunch break. Looking down from the chair, we could see birds foraging for food. Some skiers put food on their skis for those birds that had become brave enough to feed from humans on the move. We reach the top again and get set for another downward run. I take out my camera for some high-speed shots. Such an experience, and it warmed a mother's heart to know we could still share special times together. My emotions connected with memories of past joy in each other's company. I remember his first ski lesson on Mount Washington when he was 4 years old. Now he has 3 sons of his own, teaching them to ski. How comforting it is to feel this closeness, to know we will always be able to experience together the wonderment of life, no matter our age. I often get frustrated with modern technology, with all of its complexity, but this morning on Skype, I embraced it. I lived the thrill of it all through a little eye tucked into my son's top pocket. And by the way, the photos I took of my computer screen were quite interesting. And one of the most wonderful places, as there are so many wonderful places on Vancouver Island, this is the Wild Pacific Trail. The sign said the Wild Pacific Trail. I thought differently. Wild Pacific Trail. The trail was tame. It was the Pacific that was wild. Power from the depths pushed up giant furrows of raging sea, breaking open on rocky black teeth. The waves sprayed white tassels into the air, like spirited white horses running wild and tossing their manes. To a sound like thundering hooves, onlookers kept their distance, lest they be trampled by the ocean's force. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Victoria. Beautiful. All right, before we get to our next reader, I just want to remind people about a couple things. For the locals here, they pay their donation on the way in the door. But for those of you on Zoom, if you're feeling generous tonight, even if you're not, please do it. E-transfer at charslanding.com, just whatever you can spare. Much appreciated in these challenging times for Char. And we're so grateful to Char for what she does here, keeping this place alive and then doing all this Zoom hosting and becoming a real master of it that she has over the last couple of years, now that we've been locked down for so long. But anyway, e-transfer at charslanding.com, every bit would be helpful. Thank you so much. I just wanted to mention that. All right, our next reader, Joy Sheldon, is going to be our Luma Spotlight reader for tonight. She's going to have a 10-minute slot, and she's coming to us on Zoom from the Cowichan Valley. Joy, take it away.
You did, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you. On a different note, tonight's topic is entitled Aging Humorously, and pardon the pun because I'm going to sing and play my drum to introduce. I'm starting off with a short song, the lyrics of which I wrote about 2013 when I was still a grandparent raising grandchildren. I've edited out 2 verses, but the complete lyrics are in Whoopee, I'm a GRG, my humor anthology, which Derek actually helped me edit. And it was published at Amazon Books a couple of years ago. So here is my little song. I wrote the lyrics, but the Beatles wrote the tune. When I'm 64, and I've retitled it Now That I'm 65, it'll be followed by a short piece called The Brightness of Aging and The Jekyll and Hyde of Aging. And there is a third piece called When Will I Die, but I probably won't have time to do that one. You might have to suffer till next time on that one. Now that I'm old, I color my hair. Voltaren is my friend. I take now so many pills that they now come in a pack. Whenever I bend, I baby my back. I have to wear glasses to see far away. I can't get off the floor. I hate to admit it, but now I'm just not fit, 'cause I ain't 64. 5 years ago, we're living again with the baby blues. We've traded in a life of snowbirding for a new round of diapering. Everyone told us we were too old, yet who could ask for more? But will they still need us? Will they still feed us when we're 84? Down at the school, I'm waiting in line with all the cutesy moms. Most of them are younger than the children's dad. If it weren't so funny, it would be sad. We see them all wearing sandals galore, toenails painted red. The galoshes I'm wearing are simply not daring, but with the cold I'd soon be dead. Nearly each morn I'm down at McDee's after the run to school, quaffing seniors coffee muffins for $1. A few hours of freedom, oh, it's such luck. I read Dr. Donahue, then the obits, realize I'm still here. They've said it's not in you, but we'll continue for another year. They've said it's not in you, but we'll continue for another year. And this one's called The Brightness of Aging. Fairy tales can come true. It can happen to you if you're young at heart. I look at everything now. Now that I have hit 70, all life takes on new meaning. Colors are brighter. I take time to photograph sunsets. I wear bright colors. A pox on somber navy blues and boring blacks. Give me magenta dresses and teal-colored skirts with outrageous cerise flounces. Things that I would have ignored in the past, I now pay attention to. For example, a tiny picture of a recent Mount Etna eruption way up in the left-hand corner of a local newspaper. Now I notice that the spewing part of a volcano has a kind of a halo inside. One night I photographed a gorgeous sunset silhouetting my neighbor's farmhouse. Before 70, I wouldn't have cared. Now every minute becomes more precious. I want to fill them with fun things, enlightening things. For years I scoffed at, you gotta stop and smell the roses. Now I take the time. I stop and pet the neighbor's dogs, because pretty soon there would be no time left, no time to store up memories or create new ones. I, like many seniors, ponder what exactly death and heaven will bring. Will all of my life experience expire when I do? When I was young, I barely gave it a thought. Middle age brought frightening reality. But I can now see how old age will bring quiet acceptance, a why fight it attitude, a curiosity. Are there really pearly gates, a long illuminated tunnel? There is a reason why we were put here on Earth. I'm not quite sure just what it is, but there have been many suggestions to learn our lesson, to become better than we were in a previous life, to fill up a hole, a void in the wide expanse of the universe. And some believe to get a chance to try again because we mucked it up the first time around. Now I reconnect with old friends, attend school reunions I might have skipped before. I sing and read at open mics for the first time ever. History means more to me now. I go to memorial services for people I barely knew. Attend certain events, especially family ones, I would have skipped in the past. Make sure I put in birthday parties for the grandchildren. Attend all their school events without fail. Spend a few moments each week prioritizing what is really important in my life and what is not. Neglect to deadhead my Shasta daisies in favor of spending my latest writing project. Drink that glass of wine I know I shouldn't. I love that life is too short excuse. I often research some of my favorite old movie stars on YouTube just to see if they're still alive and how they deal with this aging business. I love that at the age of 86, Dick Van Dyke married Arlene, a makeup artist nearly 40 years his junior. In 2015, he wrote a book entitled Keep Moving. I recommend it. In 2018, Dick and Arlene did a marvelous duet of Young at Heart on YouTube. And of course, I sang the first two lines to introduce this. The aging process, yes, eventually we are all going to have to deal with it, whether we want to or not. It looks like, in spite of all their Botox and facelifts, there comes a time when even the wealthiest celebrities will have to give it up. Admit that it is finally over. Give in to the wrinkles and the sags. And when that time comes, we will all have to decide whether we'll go out with a bang or a whimper. And of course, that's a reference to T.S. Eliot. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper. And this is a short humor one. The Jekyll and Hyde of aging, its few advantages and many downfalls. From Julius Caesar, the fault lies not in the stars, but in ourselves. In brackets, especially when we eat that largish piece of Black Forest cake topped with a generous dollop of ice cream. Being over 70 mostly sucks big time, but it has its compensations. I practically never have to shave my legs because the spider veins are too noticeable to wear short skirts anyway. My pantyhose budget is now almost nil. I feel like sending an expensive bunch of flowers to whoever invented those cutesy 3/4 length pants. I still get to go sockless, yet a multitude of sins are covered. I never get asked for ID. I no longer have to spend hours toasting in the sun to get the perfect tan. I do, however, have to cover up like a swami and have a whole repertoire of floppy hats. On senior socializing, my regular clerk misses me if I don't show up for Seniors Day at the local pharmacy every Tuesday. The main topics of conversation at our coffee clatches now are blood pressure, blood sugar levels, and to be the cute guy who was serving us drinks. Low or normal blood test numbers is almost as good as winning the lottery. I can really lord it over my other senior friends who are out buying hearing aids and reading glasses, but I suspect my time is coming. Seniors fashion. You are now forgiven if caught wearing your sweater inside out. Since my clothing size for about 40 years, I can just keep my old stuff till it comes back into fashion. Vis-a-vis makeup. I don't have to pluck my eyebrows and pencil them in, as they've mostly fallen out anyway. Wearing the mask during the COVID outbreak saved me about 10 grand for a lower facelift. Vis-a-vis technology. I have a built-in no-cost computer techie, the grandson. On the other hand, I often embarrass myself on podcasts by telling the host I don't know which button to push. The only non-fattening food left that I can eat is lettuce. The clerk in the store yesterday who called me dearie was younger than my granddaughter. A cut and color costs about $100 now. I'm tempted to go out and buy a bottle of peroxide. Well, it worked in the old days. My new doctor looks like he just graduated from kindergarten. My old one, my age, had to retire because he couldn't understand the new computer program. And I'll finish off with senior romance. The only guy who winked at me this year was hunched over a walker. Listen up, girls. At our age, our chances of meeting a guy who isn't either gay, married, or deceased are about 0.1%. And worst of all, I may yet have to resort to dancing with the girlfriends. And the complete versions of these will also be in my new anthology, which is going to be called A Senior Smorgasbord, and I hope to publish it at Amazon Books in the fall. And there is one more, Derek, it's called When Will I Die? But I think I'll leave it for next time, because I think my 10 minutes is probably up. Yeah,
that'll
I'll
be
leave
good.
it for next time.
Okay, thank you so much, Joy. Wonderful. All right, yeah, and I think we're just going to get all our open mic readers in tonight, so it's working out just perfect here. Our next open micer is actually a very close relative of Linda K. Thompson, her sister. And just to show you the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, Janet Miller is going to share with us some of her work. And hopefully next month we'll get Linda's daughter up here if we twist her arm hard enough. But anyway, well, more about that later. Here's Janet Miller.
Oh, I can faintly see people. Can you hear me? Whoops, okay. How about that? How's that? I don't think I'm the sister I am finicky about chicken breast, but I'm pretty sure I'm not that one in the poem. Pretty sure. And the very first line of Linda's bio, that she grew up in the beautiful Pemberton Valley on a potato and cattle farm, that's the first line of my bio too. So what I'm reading is a tiny little excerpt from my novel in progress, and I thank Derek for writing me a lovely letter of reference. I did a solo writer's retreat at Hague Brown House in February, end of February, early March this year, and it was great. I made great progress in this novel that's taking a long time to write a novel. I should become a poet. So this is like smack in the middle of the novel. And without any preamble, it's part 1, chapter 2. The bathroom ceiling of the Lordminster bus depot tipped sideways. Her brain sloshed inside her head. Sonia closed her eyes and felt her shoulder blades slide down the green wall. 2 ladies, sisters maybe, at the sinks, studying themselves in the mirror, must have seen her reflection slip out of sight behind them. They sucked in their breath and turned. Both wiped their hands on their flowered dresses, stepped across the room and knelt down. When Sonia opened her eyes, she saw the large pale faces in front of her, down at her level. Black kerchiefs tied under their chins, large, kind faces. "Are you with child?" one of the faces asked. "I'm Miriam, this is Anna." "No, I hope not," said Sonia. "Wouldn't that take the cake?" She wasn't sure she had spoken out loud. "Children are gifts from God," said Miriam, her voice a whisper. "Motherhood is honorable." "Oh, brother," Sonia said, or maybe didn't, and tried to smile. She had been drinking bad coffee in the bar in North Battleford, while Dave and Stu downed beers. Neither she nor Dave had eaten breakfast. Todd's ready hot food in the heated, greasy glass unit behind the smoky bar had looked too disgusting to imagine eating. Seated on the floor in the bathroom, leaning back against the wall, maybe she'd stay there forever. The two ladies in gentle attendance. "Are you headed somewhere?" Sonia said when the room leveled off and she knew she could speak. Miriam smiled, teeth straight but with cavities down their edges. "We are just here using the restroom." Anna had gone back to the sink, run water over a corner of her apron, gave it a quick twist and returned. She dabbed at Sonia's forehead and the sides of her neck. The apron smelled like fresh bread with a tang of ammonia. "Our husbands are waiting for us outside," said Miriam. "We have farms, chickens." Anna said, "Lots of chickens. Today we deliver to the town people." No food, sludgy coffee, got on the 2:00 bus to Edmonton, and then this fainting at the rest stop in Lordminster. Sonia thought, except for the presence of the two nice ladies, she could very well be in hell. At the terminal in North Edmonton, she collected her belongings, staggered off the bus, purse slung across her body, sports bag dragging down her shoulder, a carton of eggs tied with grosgrain ribbon and tucked securely under her other arm. She took a few steps and vomited into a garbage container on the sidewalk. Sonia was leaving the prairies and going back to BC, to her valley and her mountains. She had met Dave in northern Alberta the past winter when she worked in the kitchen of an oil rig camp, peeling potatoes and making trays of Nanaimo bars. The crew was a mix of old guys and roughnecks who were mostly young. All the men had had an eye on Sonia, that's what she felt, but they probably would have only wanted her to open the door of their room in the Atco trailer for a quick tussle on their cot with them. That sort of thing didn't interest her. She stayed up late each night playing rummy with the guys, drinking tea, joking around. Dave was in his 20s, a regular with Thompson Drilling, head of a crew. He seemed a cheerful type, tall, fair-haired, slender, but muscular. He'd asked her out. They had driven on the frozen roads to Fairview, the nearest town with a pub, and sat across from each other at a small round table in a noisy room. He had taken his coat off, rolled up his shirt sleeves, and moved his chair around beside hers. "Well," he'd said, "if this is a date, we need to sit closer." With Dave so near, a shock of warmth moved up her body and settled in her chest. Without thinking, she placed her hand on top of his forearm and gently slid her hand down, felt the tickle of his golden hairs beneath her palm, slowly down and off the tips of his fingers. Then she pulled her hand away and tucked it under her thigh, took a big breath. She felt her cheeks lift in a smile. "Oh," he'd said, his eyes were shut. "Could you do that again?"
Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. That brought back a lot of the wilds of northern Alberta, where I lived for a few years. Not so far from Fairview, actually. Very believable. Okay. All right, our next reader is Kathleen Vance, who's zooming in to us from the Sunshine Coast. Gonna share some more, I hope, of her
Okay. All right.
kid stories. Go for it.
Okay. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. That's a prayer, not a swear. Who, I ask you, Anne's mother said, takes 4 kids on a week's vacation to the beach when a hurricane's coming and with no reservations for a place to stay? Anne's father stared at the highway straight ahead and said nothing. It was a 5-hour car ride with the usual fighting about who had to sit in the middle and who had crossed over that invisible line that marked off each kid's space. They stopped once at a rest stop and each got a chocolate-covered ice cream, even though it was only 10 in the morning. After a picnic lunch, they all waited eagerly for that first smell of the ocean. Anne's mother always smelled it first, a fishy smell of salt and seaweed, better than anything else in the world. During the search for a place to stay, Tommy, Margaret, and Anne had to remain in the car. Only Benny was allowed to go in with Anne's parents. He's so young, people still think he's cute, Anne's mother had said. After looking at one place, Anne's mother had really yelled at them when she got back to the car. You kids were making so much noise, shouting and crying and hitting each other, that the lady stepped out to see what was going on and then told me she only rented to quiet families. So next time, you kids all get down on the floor of the car and shut up. If we don't find a place, we have to turn around and drive back home. Can't you get that through your thick skulls? Anne's father added. It must have worked because they got the very next place, a big 3-story white wood house, and they had the whole top floor. They unpacked the car. It's so hot in here, Anne's mother said, and began opening all the windows. It was hot, and the air was not moving. Their father told them who had which rooms, but Benny was the luckiest, because Anne's father set up the army surplus cot for him right under a window in the hallway outside Anne's room. That night, Anne suddenly woke up. Her bedroom door was open because of the heat. The wind was blowing everywhere. There was thunder and lightning, and rain was coming in the window over Benny's bed. But even worse, Benny himself was hanging out the window and about to fall on his head. Anne raced over to grab his legs and pull him back in. I stood up on the cot and climbed up to close the window, but got stuck, Benny cried. The next day, Margaret, Tommy, Anne, and Benny stood under the giant beach umbrella wrapped in their big beach towels. Well, let's all go for a swim, Anne's father said. It's pouring rain, Anne cried. So you're going to get wet anyway. You're not made of sugar. You won't melt. Just look at those waves. Anne's mother had gone shopping on the boardwalk. For some peace and quiet, she said. The water was cold and the waves were big. Anne's father was near the shore with Benny, who was laughing as his father lifted him up high above the water as each wave broke. Tommy, Margaret, and Anne went out deeper, trying to catch a wave just right, just before it broke, so that if they lay flat with their arms out in front of them and the dead man's float their father had taught them, the wave would carry them all the way into shore. Most of the time, the wave just lifted Anne up and set her back down in the same spot. Or if she didn't pinch her nose and duck under the water soon enough, The wave would break over her so hard that it hurt. But this one time, Anne caught the biggest wave ever. It kept carrying her on, and Anne got scared. So scared, she tried to get back up, but the wave kept pushing her down. Anne didn't know where she was anymore, so she tried to lift her head up to see, but the wave wouldn't let her. She wanted to open her mouth to breathe, even to scream, but she remembered her father telling her, "Never, ever open your mouth underwater. You're not a fish." This was worse than fighting with Tommy and Margaret when they pushed her head against the ground. They always got sick of it and stopped. Anne just couldn't get up. Anne thought about what her father had said about waves. You can't fight the wave. You can't win. Go with it. It will only go so far and then it will head back. No wave lasts forever. But maybe this one will, Anne thought as she forced herself to play dead. Suddenly, Anne felt sand in her teeth. She was just getting up when a strange man leaned over her and took her arm. Anne screamed. "It's okay, kid. I'm the lifeguard. See?" Anne looked at his red and white jacket with the word lifeguard written on it. "I saw you coming in on that big wave and was afraid you'd run into trouble." Just then, Anne's father came up. "It's all right. I'm her father. I'll take her now." "Anne, I was coming for you. I just had to bring Benny over to the umbrella. You're okay now, but best not to tell your mother. You know how she worries." When they got back to the house from the beach, Anne's mother was already there waiting for them. She ran up to her mother. "Guess what happened to me today?" was Anne's first words. The end.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathleen. And just shuffle over on the couch now, and David can take the screen over. There we go. David Kipling's going to share some fiction with us, I guess, tonight. David?
Yes, it's all my life is fiction.
All right.
It's a substitute for life. Okay. The notice on the battered steel door of the Bitova Jazz Bar said in English and in what Zadine assumed was Czechoslovakian, "Sorry, closed." Halkova Street was quiet this evening under soft rain. He could hear Jacques Luthier's piano on someone's stereo drifting with incense through a third-floor window into the dripping air. Zidane checked his watch in an exaggerated fashion, stuck here as he was on the cobble under the street lamp, to show he was not a burglar. 8 o'clock. Zidane had been counting the hours since they had parted outside the Masna hostel. He'd called Julinka's cell phone 3 times and the hostel once, but they wouldn't tell him anything. He'd known Julinka for 6 months, and their friendship had grown so much closer on this trip across Europe. So where the hell was she? Zidane found shelter in the optometrist's doorway and hugged his arms. The rain was slowing, and the gaps between the cobbles led the water gently, as though through a maze, to the drain. It was massive, that drain cover, Zidane thought. Look at it. He had to think of something while Julinka was finding a way here. Back home in Manchester, the drains had thick iron grills, like industrial letter slots. He'd idly kicked pebbles into them just to hear the delayed plop. He had watched city workers lifting drain covers, straining in pairs with strong hooked levers, and dropping the covers with a grunt to one side. Here in Prague, the drain covers were round, their symbols and lettering moulded in relief. That's real labor, Zidane thought, recalling his workshop at the art college. That needs an induction furnace and carved wooden patterns to shape the green sand and the clay of the mold. Though in first-year sculpture, they practiced carving blocks of stupid bondo. Where is Julinka? The water carried an oily sheen as it wept between the pebbles, like molten aluminum leaking from a crucible. Zidane looked both ways down the street. Nobody coming. He furtively stooped and pushed a finger into one of the cover's holes. It was deeper than his finger. just cold iron and rainwater. He wouldn't do that with a Manchester drain. You might pick up anything in a Manchester drain, Allah be merciful. He counted 13 holes round the circumference, like the empty chambers of a giant revolver. And in the center, the relief outline of a castle, solid. This thing would last centuries. It was absolute, silicon, carbon, manganese, indifferent to transient humans and their hopes. Where was Jelinka? Zidane shivered. Jelinka had promised 7 o'clock here, Halkova Street, the jazz bar owned by Eva Bitova, and where Eva herself was supposed to be performing live this evening. He had seen Eva Bitova on jazz violin last summer, when his American uncle Hamid had paid for Zidane and his sister to fly from England for a visit. In LA, Zidane had gone out by himself to see Eva perform with Bobby McFerrin in a nightclub, an actual Hollywood nightclub. Can you believe it? Awesome. It had been awesome. Ava's violin snarling and whooping over Bobby McFerrin's vocals. Unforgettable. At home in Manchester, his father had mocked Zidane for even going to art college. Painty, scribbly, fancy woman work, his father had bellowed, hurling a proffered sketchbook back at Zidane's head. The last time, the very last and final time, Zidane had spoken to him. Not for Zidane, that old tyrant's life of property management. You did not trick Allah with the devil's fancy names for being a slum landlord. That drain cover must weigh 40 kilograms. Last year, when Zidane had created the molds for his college graduation piece, the foundry warned him that the cast bronze figure would weigh over 200 kilograms. And to cover the delivery charge, he'd sold 2 of his best sketches rather than ask at home. Now, as he stared, the circle of 13 holes appeared dreamlike to rotate like a roulette wheel. The piano piece from the 3rd floor had stopped, and now a motorized street sweeper began its shuffling pace up Halkova Street towards him. The rider's ridiculous yellow hard hat bobbled and tilted. Where the freaking hell was Jelinka? It was so unfair. Jelinka couldn't be lost. Jelinka knew Prague. Although she was English like him, she could trace her family way back to nearby Pilsen. Pilsen, where the beer came from. He hated Pilsen, lightweight rubbish. Guinness was his drink. Pour me a dark one, Donnelly, Zidane used to smile to the barman at his local, the Greyhound. One dark one coming up, sir, Donnelly would reply. When Zidane was at home, his home territory, familiar streets he'd grown up in. She'd visited Prague half a dozen times in the past, Jelinka, so she said, always staying at the Masna, the woman-only hostel. Easy for her European travel with her face and her hair looking like that. 2 weeks traveling and camping together, and Julie still wouldn't spend the night with Zidane. So for Prague, he'd set up his tent under the trees at the shabby Latenska campsite out by the railway lines. They'd had fun exploring Prague so far, so what was wrong? Here he was, spending their hoped-for jazz evening with a storm drain cover and hiding his fear under what reassurance the disciplines of ferrous and non-ferrous metalwork could supply. Somewhere below this cast iron disc, ancient tunnels and pipes were draining away the city's tears, while Zidane waited on the wet cobbles. The end.
Love that, draining away the city's tears, David. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Took us to Prague. All right, our next reader is Vicki Drypbrough. She's no stranger to the Port Alberni audience here. She's a local author who was co-author of Both Sides Now, that book that came out last year, and is going to actually have a special edition coming out pretty darn soon. Vicki Drypbrough, welcome to Electric Mermaid.
Thank you, Jarek. Can you hear me? I just think it's so exciting to be back at Char's. Yeah, no kidding. Surrounded by all these other writers and poets and literary people. It's great. It's energizing, and I love it. I'm going to read 2 poems tonight, and boy, they're really old, but I guess that's okay. The first one is called Ernest and Martha. I bet Ernest Hemingway never pickled beets over a sweltering stove, damp cigar clamped between purple-stained fingers, as he contemplated the effective use of understatement in modern fiction. I doubt that Ginsberg ever scrubbed a toilet, beard tucked, brush in hand, pondering over porcelain, the evils of conformity, the impact of ragged alignment. I, on the other hand, witness the death of mouth-watering metaphors every day. They drown in the ooze of Martha's favorite cupcake batter, or throw themselves from columns of checking, savings, and balance due. Oh, for the solitude of a sleazy hotel room, free to explore the lovely long body of the written word, with all its subtleties and surprises. To let hyperbole roll from my tongue, run my fingers over the silken smoothness of immaculate imagery. Stroke the swelling rise of story till it becomes a thing of substance with a life of its own. And finally, break away with only Hemingway's concerns. Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Shall I sleep? And the second one I wrote, a few years ago when I had a bit of a cancer scare and the doctor said he thought I might have cancer, and it kind of shakes your whole world. And it's called At Dinner. At dinner, you ask how my day was. I want to tell you it was a beautiful day. I felt like crying how the trees slow danced with the fog all day. And the maple down the street was so red, it sucked the breath from my throat. But you want to hear who got screwed, what new tax hike is coming, how the dollar's doing, trying to hold on as I'm learning to let go. Thank you very much.
They may be old, but they're still beautiful, Vicki. They're beautiful poems. Thank you. All right, our next reader is Libbie Morin, another co-author of Both Sides Now, and I think she's going to read some poems for us tonight, if we're lucky. Yes, poetry it is. All right, Libbie Morin, thank you.
I don't have to move the mic that low, Vicki. It's really wonderful to be back again. I don't realize how much I miss it till, I'm standing up here again. I've been giving a lot of thought to reaching back in memory. I think COVID and the isolation has made me realize what I value and what my memories are. And often the memories are connected with food. So the last little while I've been matching my written work with recipes that bring back memories of family or friends or things I have done. This recipe I'm going to pair with this recipe is going to be the empanadas. It's called Tourists Slowly Waking. I cram damp toilet paper, pack the canal, those sharp-winged birds wake at dusk, night-eyed, never silent, insinuating threats deep into my dream world. And everywhere, honey ants with honey bites, busy in their business, making orderly roads upwards and downwards, their industry undeniable as they create bridges with their dead. Across the red-furrowed fields, black-faced sheep, tense, teasing thin blades of grass, they roll their eyes, those glistening black marbles searching for green softness. Throughout everywhere. Bony, four-legged citizens, mangy curs. Some lay with their scabby bellies turned to the sky, oblivious but to footsteps and scraps. They are the recipients of tolerance and understanding. This side of midnight, rough street. Copper skin, no nonsense crone, parking lot vigilante claims her territory. For 6 pesos at a time, she guards the privileged cards. Her apron jingles with a thin sound of coins. A bus depot dog sniffs at her sandals, awarded with not even a glance as she shuffles past us, our usefulness now fulfilled. Our own coins have joined the chorus, proof of our complicity. A grim parade approaches in the midday heat. They march, workers' hands waving a forest of signs, of faces painted with tears alongside fists clenched upwards in solidarity. Comrades, never forget, this soil is stained red with our stories. Corroded metal baskets punctuate the Malecon. Like old military men, their vitality now but a memory. Garbage displayed within elevated 4 feet high pedestals, a tribute to urban progress while avoiding the marauding canine maws. The stately trees at La Plaza embrace the bullets deep in their heartwood, like so many secrets. They were the silent witness, slowly absorbing blood and metal, slowly evolving into trees of knowledge, into bodhisattvas. At night, they wear ribbons of rainbow lights and display messages on their chests for the tourists safely passing by in sweet ignorance. In the midst of the procession of the Virgin, a must experience for the tourist diary, I watch a legless man dragging himself forward against the flowing stream of feet, a small basket tied on his back. He's slow as a prayer. One palm turned skyward, a supplicant in a river of veneration, plying the crowd for mercy, praying for his basket to be filled, while the Madonnas paraded around and past him, elevated high above the mundane. She is safe in her blindness, safe in her papier-mâché eyes. Chile, I am but a tourist. While you are stoic and resourceful, proud and reverent, forgive me for walking through your blood-red earth with my dirty feet. And that was it.
Thank you, Libbie. Very powerful. Super. All right, our next reader, well known to me. Some people may be here in town too. It's my son, Sean Hanebury. Share some poetry.
Hi, this is a lonesome. Wire words, sleeping dogs, sleeping birds. All the candy in my heart soared, the one that I was, between my toes, sleepy roads. The heart in my ankle, feeling strong, sad. All sorts of sensations in the touch of my fingers. I run until I get to you, who knows my unspoken self, dancing multicolors on my dream boy. Reach my legs to the edge of the blanket, sweep the floor. I adore nobody else but you, who flies in a jumbo jet plane to find me. Boomerang, coffin nail, strong exhale, blackberry pale. Thicken my strong heart with multivitamins. Reflection opens in the ripples. I am sleeping in your nipples that open for feeding child. Wash my hands in the light soap that I hoped I could give to you, who watches my television, who washes my body when I am too old to. Can I hold you? Thank you.
All right, we're winding down here. We've got a couple more readers, just Joe, Lunchbucket, and me. Come on up, Bob.
This is an excerpt from the cruise play where all the passengers are the actors and nobody gives a damn because they'll probably never see each other again. News: Biden is opting for Pontius Pilate's solution. That is, washing his hands of Afghanistan and leaving the country to determine their own fate. Joe Lunchbucket: think of all the lives they could have saved if they thought of that before Korea, Vietnam, Cuba, and Iraq. Armchair politician: do both parties share blame for Afghan fiasco? Historian: will Taliban allow women education because world is watching, or return to dark ages like Ayatollah did when he attacked embassies? Atheist: when you have God on your side, you can do no wrong. That is, stoning heretics, adulterers, homosexuals, and anyone working the Sabbath is doing God's work. Joe Lunchbucket: do theocracies continue the killing until they get consensus? Agnostic: yes, but have faith in the good book, because evolution is admittedly only a theory. Global warmer: trout are dying because it's too hot. Are G20 countries to blame, and is stopping global warming too late? Optimist: should wearing masks in schools and churches be mandatory? Pessimist: when virus is small enough to pass through most fibers, are masks effective or redundant? Prophet of doom: if we only have a few million years before our sun burns out, are we wasting time on superstition when we should be preparing for space travel? Agnostic: will technology or prayer save us? Believer: prayer must be working for Taliban because they're winning. Historian: US method of operation was covert activity, then propping up a puppet dictator that will sell them strategic materials at the right price. Biden said Afghanistan pullout wasn't a failure. Was it a victory like Vietnam? Canuck: was US intelligence lacking and Afghan made a deal with Taliban? Can everyone leave Afghanistan in orderly fashion, or is it survival of the fittest contest? That's about as far as I got on the news.
Thank you for that, Bob. All right, I'm just going to read a couple of short poems here and we'll wind it up for the evening. We'll start with a happy one first. Okay. Picking a lot of blackberries lately. Anybody else? Amazing how fat they are considering how dry it's been and how sweet. Anyway, this is called Meditations on Blackberries. Not everything is as it seems. Blackberries aren't black. Without summer heat, September blackberries are content to die bitter. An impulsive pick invites thorns or hornets or both. The sweetest berries come willingly to your fingers. Like all worthwhile things, blackberries can demand blood. By bending down and looking up, you find a whole other layer of berries hidden in the shadows of the leaves. Names are important. Blackberries wouldn't taste as wild if you called them boysenberries. Low fruit can look plump, but they often taste of dogs. Ripeness isn't all, but true sweetness demands it. Blackberries aren't black. Nothing is as it seems. And then the less cheerful one after the UN report on climate change came out, and all the fires that are going on. Sometimes it can feel a little apocalyptic. Anyway, this is a real recent one. It's called Perseus in the Pyrocene, just from last week. I dream I struggle to come to in a stifling tent, while my old friend Ken doom scrolls Twitter like there's no tomorrow, immune to my muted screams for help. Sweat sticky, I wake in my real bed under a single sheet, the heat pump groaning like a dinosaur in labor. My wife beside me says our daughter is up and heading for the neighbor's trampoline to watch the Perseus meteor shower. Smoke from interior fires has spilled over the Rockies and flowed east to squat on Manitoba, leaving our skies cellophane clear. So she tracks the streaks of meteors, etching the sky while I sweat in bed. 52 days without rain, and think of Lytton turning to ash in half an hour. Picture of the burnt California firefighter locked in a coma, struggling to surface. I take to my meditation cushion and try to ignore the distant roar of mills mowing down on cedar and fir fiber. A chorus of sirens howls down Johnson Road, and I wonder what she's thinking, back flat on the black trampoline. The meteors burning to nothing overhead. Does she see us in those bursts of light that flare and die the way the Greeks saw Perseus in the night sky? 49 degrees in Athens last week. The island of Evia still blazing. If she asks, I will tell her we are all in this hot tent together, struggling to wake up. Okay, well, that's it for another Electric Mermaid. Thank you all so much for coming out, and so great to be back in Char's again. Oh my God, I just want to weep. But lovely, lovely to have the extra dimension of our Zoom regulars and some new faces joining us at the same time. And I think that dimension maybe is just going to carry on forever, whether we return to the so-called normal again or not. I think it just is lovely to see. So thank you to all of them. And of course, a huge thank you to Char for running this venue and running the Zoom. Thank you, Char, for all you do in our community and beyond to keep the arts alive here. And just a reminder, e-transfer at charslanding.com if you're feeling at all generous. Thank you also to Jackie Carmichael, who is our artistic director and lines up our featured readers and does so much to write the press releases and everything else. We're eternally grateful to you, Jackie. I know you're not feeling great, so you're probably not still on, but thank you for all you do. And thank you to our featured readers, Kate McDermott from Washington and Linda Thompson here, and for our spotlight, wherever you are, Joy. I can't see you there on the screen right now, but hopefully you're still listening. And thank you, of course, to all our open mic readers as well. And thank you to Karl Kjorven, our moderator, who lines up our open mic readers and keeps things on the straight and narrow here, especially me. Thank you, Karl. And to Micah Gardner, who's our photographer, who I don't think is with us tonight, but certainly supports us. Oh, Micah is there. I see your name on the board, Micah. Hello. Okay. Yeah, we got the thumbs up. Micah is there. Thanks, man. All right, so that's it until next month. So September the 17th will be our next one, and hopefully we'll be here in person again at Char's Landing. And of course, there's always the Zoom option if you'd rather stay home. Don't forget the stuff in the chat there. You can save that chat if you'd like to hang on to any of the information there. There's the 3 dots to the right of the 2 button. Just click those and it'll allow you to save the chat for future reference. And again, of course, this will also be up on YouTube, thanks to Char's magic with the technology. And for those of you who might be looking for a copy of Linda's book, Head Where I Am, right after this, which is over to Brian here in this part of the room. Thank you all for coming, and hopefully we'll see you in September.
Thank you, Derek.
Yes, thank you, Derek.
Wonderful evening.
Yes,
Congratulations.
it's so good to be back. So good. Take care.
Thank you to everybody that's out still online. Thank you for coming out. Have a great night.
Yay!